Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Gas Bike Build, the 5-hour mark. So let's get into it and we'll talk about some of the work that I've done on the bike in that first 5 hours. So first up, to start the episode, we've got a ride with a couple of the boys at the local block here in Toowoomba. So while that footage is playing, I'll talk through some of the things that I missed in episode 2 of the reasons why I went the gas over the Husqvarna or the KTM. So to start off, the Husqvarna never crossed my mind. For one, I don't see value in the price of them. Two, I don't like the idea of the carbon subframe. Talked to a lot of guys who have smashed them and broke them, and they're quite expensive to replace. And three, I don't like the look of them at all. So then I was just left with staying with KTM or going to the gas. Now for me, I wanted to try something different. I've ridden KTMs for the past 10 years, so I really wanted something new, but I also wanted something I'd know. The main reason really for the gas was price. It was significantly cheaper than the KTM. I couldn't get hold of a 2021 KTM 350. They were sold out, so I would have had to wait for a 2022, which again, there's a price increase. I don't think there was any new mods between the 21 and the 22. And I figured new bike, linkage suspension, give it a try. So that's how I ended up on the gas 350. On this ride through the trails, I was still having issues with that front fork. I didn't like it. It was misbehaving and causing me some grief. So I thought we'd go down to some of the tighter, slower tracks to see how the fork would handle that, because that seems what they're building this suspension for these days. And through these tighter creeks with this river rock style boulders, it was even worse. It honestly felt stiffer than any suspension I've used. It was deflective. It was horrible. A few times it unloaded on me at weird points and I ended up binning it, like you can see here. Now I don't know what's going on with this fork. Yes, I am a bit heavier for it, but it shouldn't be doing that. I've ridden undersprung bikes before and they're softer, but they're not unpredictable. The next day we were going to the Toowoomba motocross track, and there was no way I'm going to ride that stock fork. It's just simply too dangerous. So I decided to rob the forks out of my 500. Now they are sprung and valved a fair bit stiffer for that weight of the 500. To soften these forks up, I dropped 30 ml of oil out of each fork leg. Now, this isn't perfect, but it will help bring them back down. I already know the bike is going to be out of balance with that rear shock being undersprung, but I can deal with a soft rear versus that sketchy front. Then the other one was I wanted to try the narrower tyre to get rid of that 140. So I put the wheels on my 500 over to the gas. No performance gain here, except the tyre is a 110 by 100, which will work much better with the 350, and the gearing combo that got swapped over is a 1348. So let's go and see how it goes. So I haven't been on a motocross track for a while, so I was quite rusty, but the bike held up really well. It was much more forgiving to ride than the 500. It was out of balance, as we would know it would be, but the front forks were so much better. They were safe, I could trust them, they didn't do anything weird. And I think that's the difference between stock suspension and good suspension, is you really trust what it's doing. So after the trip to the motocross track, I went back out to bush and did some more rides on this bike. Now the skinnier back tyre is so much better. It just livens up that engine. helps you a bit more acceleration, and yeah, it's really perfect for a 350. I don't think I'd go to a 120, I think I'd probably just stay to that 110. Now, while there were no performance gains for swapping the black wheels over, man, they look good. Like, silver rims to me just make a bike look old. I think the black and red combination of this bike, especially with the Kashima coated forks right now, this is probably the best looking bike I've had, in my opinion, and I really like it how it looks right now. But it doesn't really make you ride faster, but looks good in the back of the ute. So in episode 2 I spoke about the brakes and the front brake not feeling like it had much bite power at the pad. I thought maybe that was a pad issue. As soon as I swapped the wheels over to my stock KTM wheels, it went away. So I imagine that disc just has to bed in a little bit more, or maybe there was a little bit of a coating on it. But that brake issue has pretty much gone away, and they feel just as good as a set of Brembos off a KTM. Now let's talk a little bit about some feedback about some of the parts I fitted in episode 1. Now, I can't ride like a pro, but I can crash like one, and I've been riding this bike into the ground a fair bit lately. The Acerbi's bark busters, they've held up perfect. I haven't had any lever dramas. They're quite strong. I like the look of them, they've handled it well. The radiator shrouds and the radiator braces, they look brand new and they have hit the ground a fair few times. No damage, no marks, no twisting of anything, so I think those radiator braces are a real win. And the Acerbi's bash plate, I've hit some big logs and some big rocks with the bottom of this bike, and no issues. It doesn't have that horrible metal clud sound like an alloy bash plate is, so I think that bash plate's a real winner as well. So something that's been bugging me for a while on this bike is the seat. The stock seat is very soft. You almost feel like you're sitting in the bike, and it also is quite slippery. It's not very grippy. So I got this aftermarket seat cover from Strike Seats. It's a pleated gripper, so heaps of grip there. It's really good for out in the bush when you are, in the mud and the slippery stuff. You're not coming back off the back of the bike all the time. Now I laid the seat cover straight over the stock seat. That will help firm it up a little bit and help protect that foam from breaking down from moisture over time, because that's what causes the seat to go soft over time, is moisture getting into the foam. Now, like I've talked about previously, the exhaust is quite restricted and it just feels choked up. The bike really doesn't have much in the bottom to mid-end, and I don't like that power delivery at the moment. So I talked to a few guys and there is a bit of a trick to de-restricting these mufflers even more. So as you can see here, there is this triangular cone baffle piece that sits inside the muffler. Now we need to get this out. So if you don't have some technical experience, probably want to get a fabrication shop to do this, but you need to grind off these welds or melt them off with an oxy and then use a punch to knock the internal cone baffle out. Once it's done, you have a exhaust with the same inner diameter as the motocross mufflers. So it should give us very similar gains to an aftermarket FMF or Akrapovic or one of those exhausts. And then the last thing to do was to send the stock shock off to Dave at Suspension Matters. So we're going to respring it to my weight, and he put a bit of a valving change in there to help give it a bit more dampening levels, because they are valved quite soft from stock. So how did the bike go with the exhaust mod and Dave's magic in the rear end? You'll have to wait for episode 4. In the meantime, check out this video of our group ride at Toowoomba. See you next episode.